One of the many things I have talked about on my channel is my intense love for the days of MySpace. I loved everything about MySpace, from posting comments to spending 4 hours customizing your page and essentially learning to code in order to seem cooler than all of your friends. I thought MySpace as a whole was dope as hell. And one of the many reasons I loved MySpace more than any other social media was because of the music. MySpace music just hit differently because it all seemed very homegrown. I remember bragging to my friends about finding Owl City when he only had a few thousand followers and getting annoyed when he got popular from Fireflies and having all of them only know Fireflies. Yes, I was that annoying girl. I remember finding bands like Dance Gavin Dance and 303 and watching them become successful and feeling like I was honestly a part of that. MySpace music encompassed that entire feeling and felt nostalgic for me, but not all of it was good. Now I'm going to be doing a deep dive into Johnny Craig soon and going over every allegation that has come out about him, not only from his ex-girlfriends who he abused, definitely abused them, but from his ex-bandmates who he also treated like shit, and also his fans who he stole thousands of dollars from. But that video is taking me a long time to compile because for some reason there haven't been many articles written about the situation before Taylor Nicole Dean became involved. Like, there are articles about how he left bands and was kicked out of bands and all of that, but none go into that much detail as to the actual allegations that his exes alleged to him, which is a damn shame because, like, why don't we want to spread that information? Why don't we want to spread the proof? But anyway, today isn't about Johnny. It's about another MySpace era band member who not only is an abusive creep, but is a full-on, full-out predator who admitted to sleeping with a 14-year-old girl and preys on girls between the ages of 11 to 15. And that person is Dahvie Vanity. For those of you who don't know who Dahvie Vanity is, he was a part of the popular MySpace group Blood on the Dance Floor, commonly referred to as BOTDF, or at least that's what we referred to them as in my high school. The band grew incredibly fast, with them being a huge draw for many tours, and with it, the band's influence grew and grew and grew as well. If you were a fan of MySpace music, or emo music, or scene music, or however you want to classify the type of music that Blood on the Dance Floor made, one thing you definitely would have noticed when you go to their concerts, or even peruse their fan sites, is the fact that a lot of their fans are below the legal age limit. A lot of their fans are young girls who are between the ages of 12 to 18 who are growing up and trying to figure themselves out. And the music that they make appeals to them because it's dark and edgy and makes those girls feel different and seen. Most of the fans of that music, myself included, bond with the idea of being different from everyone else and wanting to feel special in that way. And by listening to this music, they get that feeling. That is one of the main reasons why My Chemical Romance stans and emo music stans in general are so fervent when it comes to supporting them. It's because these were the few bands that made us feel important, and they made us feel, for lack of a better word, seen. And these are people who supported us when it felt like no one else would understand. And a good number of the people in these bands are perfect gentlemen about that, and they don't overstep their boundaries that should be between every grown-ass man, in a band or not, and their underage fans, and basically anyone underage. But that is not the case for Dahvie. In fact, he started preying on young girls before he was even in Blood on the Dance Floor, when he was a popular MySpace hairstylist. Dahvie used to go by the name Dahvie the Elite Hair God on MySpace, and grew a following that way. And through that MySpace, he met his first victim, who he admitted to assaulting, who was a 14-year-old girl. Her name was Diana. Dahvie would talk to Diana for a while and groomed her the same way Onision and people like Onision have groomed countless other young girls. She was bullied and didn't have a lot of friends, and he used that in order to get an invitation to her house to do her hair. Now, when the invitation was extended, it was done so with the thought of her mom being present. However, Dahvie purposely waited hours and showed up late when he knew her mom had to work the night shift as a nurse. So Dahvie was able to be alone in the house with this 14-year-old girl, and he did do her hair, and then he forced himself on her. Mind you, at the time, he was a 22-year-old man. He was a 22-year-old adult man, and she was a 14-year-old girl living with a single mother. There was no singular way he did not know how old she was based on the living situation, based on how she looked. We've seen pictures of her at that age, and there's no way he was confused about what he had done. Now, after the event happened, Diana felt incredibly weird. She felt like she couldn't tell her mother because she was scared that her mother mother would do something to Dahvie and he would get in trouble. And like Dahvie knew and had counted on, she didn't have a lot of friends to open up to about them. So instead of opening up to any of her friends, 8 days later, she called into a Christian talk show that had a teen advice line and opened up about the situation and how she had been sexually assaulted in her own house 8 days prior. She told them how this man had come into her house, what he had done with her, and the radio station called the police for her out of concern. The next day, the cops were able to locate Diana and talk to her, and she told them what had happened, and because Dahvie had groomed her, she would try to posit that it wasn't a big deal and that he had said he loved her and she didn't want him to get into any trouble. She was trying to downplay her sexual assault, no matter how much it had hurt her. And no matter how much it had hurt her and how much the police could see that she was hurt, she tried to play it off like it didn't. And when the police caught up with Dahvie, he didn't deny her story, he didn't deny anything she had said, and simply said he didn't know how old she was. Even though when she talked to him about how old she was and how she was living alone with her mother and how she didn't have any friends at school and all of that, and had given him all that information, he said he simply did not know her age and everything she had said had happened, and didn't even deny that he forced himself on her. Which, if you like me, is where you begin to think, well, this happened before he was a music star, so why did this man go on to have a successful music career? How the fuck did this situation not end his music career before it even began? That's positively absolutely insane. And I mean, under Florida law, being ignorant of her age is not a valid excuse for what he did. Literally, if you're ignorant of anything, that doesn't excuse you committing a crime. And he was looking at up to 15 years for his crimes, and he would be considered a lifelong felon. So why didn't he go to jail, and why was he allowed to be in a successful music band? And the answer is simple. The victim and her mother decided not to proceed with the prosecution as long as he never spoke to her again. And unfortunately, after that, Dahvie formed blood on the dance floor, and things only got worse from there. Since this is the first confirmed and confessed assault done by Dahvie to a 14-year-old girl, there have been 21 other reports made against him, alleging that he groped or sexually abused them without their consent, and out of 21 reports, 21 full-ass reports, 16 of them were minors at the time, which is disturbing and a downright disgusting trend. I'm going to link below the articles that have been written about what Dahvie did to each and every one of these young women. I'll link their stories down below because their voices need to be heard, especially since the justice system doesn't care about this story. In a follow-up article written by the Huffington Post, the FBI was quoted as being aware of these allegations and the abuse he has done, but being unable to comment if there was an active investigation going on about these claims. Also, according to the police in his direct area, because no crimes and sexual assaults that we know of were committed in his jurisdiction, there is no active investigation into his actions either, which means there is a good chance that this disgusting piece of human garbage has gotten away with these crimes, or at least he has for now. It's also disgusting because there are recorded videos of him mocking women who have come forward for years, calling them liars, calling them sluts, calling them bitches. And he even threatened some of these women in his songs and mocked them in his music. And because he has a very active and loyal fan base of young women, he has been able to send them targeted harassment and threaten them with that fan base, which has probably led many more young women who he has assaulted to being silent about the potential assaults that could have happened to them. I'm not trying to imply that there are more victims out there. However, the statistics don't lie. More than 80% of rapes go unreported, and more than 80% of assaults go unreported. So I'm just saying, out of the 21 people who did come forward, I'm guessing there's a lot more who didn't. If you want to know more about how rabid the Blood on the Dance Floor and Dahvie's fans are, look no further than Jessie Slaughter. Her entire downfall was because of her statements about the band originally. Literally, she was talking sexually about Dahvie while being very, very young, and that megamorphed into something else entirely by the end of it. But the band and Dahvie, that was the start. And for all the Blood on the Dance Floor fans who will say these girls are lying or clout chasing or making things up, proof does in fact exist of the things that he has done. Here's a screenshot from a 17-year-old fan where Dahvie texts her some inappropriate things. Again, this girl is 17 years old, in high school. Her brain is not fully developed yet. This is a man she idolizes and loves because of the music he has made, which has helped her through dark times. And he is full on, full out abusing that power dynamic by requesting her to do sexual things for him. Not to mention that he is fully aware of her age. See where he says he can't wait to do that to her teenage mouth. This man just fully confirmed he knew she was underage and was okay with that. I do not understand how he isn't incarcerated over this. And not to mention the video of him groping a woman who was incredibly intoxicated, pushing her down, saying disgusting things to her until she falls on the ground. This man viewed a woman who was so drunk to the point of collapsing as a sexual object for him to touch and grope, and then put the video of him doing that up for people to see. But Dahvie has gotten away with this for years, and if hashtag Dahvie Vanity is innocent is anything to go by, there are thousands of young girls who are willing to stand by him, even if there's proof of what he has done. See again, him knowingly texting a 17-year-old when he was 28, forcing himself inside someone's mouth to the point where he ripped out some of her hair and caused her mouth to bleed. Not to mention other bands who have toured with Blood on the Dance Floor refusing to tour with him ever again because of his actions, and his own bandmates leaving the band and describing Dahvie as despicable and coming forward with their own eyewitness accounts of him doing this to young girls and going into dark rooms with young girls. Instead of people turning on Dahvie, people turned on his bandmates, calling them liars and saying they were just doing this for clout, which I do have an issue with, protecting that behavior for a certain amount of time. I do think that's pretty gross. But seriously, if someone comes forward and says, I have nothing to gain here, this is what happened, I don't understand why we're not believing them. It's also rich that people say that anyone talking about this is doing it for clout, seeing as Dahvie currently lives with his parents because he's a 35-year-old pedophile who no one will book, make music with, or tour with because they all know he's a predator and don't want to be on a bus with a man who was once arrested for bringing 2 underage girls onto his tour bus alone. At the very least, I can say that if Dahvie never received justice in the eyes of the law for his actions against every single person he has ever laid a hand on, whether they are one of the 21 people who reported their assaults or not, I will continue to spread awareness about his actions until my lungs give out and I can no longer breathe. Dahvie Vanity is a criminal who has used his influence over young women to prey on them and make them fearful of speaking out. He has so many fans ready to pounce on women who speak out about him assaulting them, and to this day, many young women will defend him. Heck, some of the people he even preyed upon admit to sending hate to people who spoke out about him because they didn't believe it until he did it to them. But he has lost almost everything there is to lose. He can no longer tour or make music because no one wants to be associated with him, no matter what he says about now trying to go solo. He lost his fiancée last year after all 21 allegations came out against him, and he was forced to move back into his parents' house and is only living off of his terrible merch sales because nobody wants anything to do with him. Again, if this idiot going to jail is not in the cards, I can't appreciate him losing absolutely everything there is to lose, including his power and influence over people he can potentially prey upon. I am going to be linking once again all the stories of all the people who have accused Dahvie of assault down below. I'm going to be linking every article that I used for research on this video, and I hope you guys will read them. Give the woman who came forward a little bit of your time and a little bit of your compassion. It's incredibly clear that there is a pattern with this guy, and if anything, seeing this predator and what he used to attack people is a great way of arming yourself against other predators in the future. Let me know what you guys think of this situation in the comments down below. Let me know if you were ever a fan of Dahvie or Blood on the Dance Floor before this, and let me know where you lie now. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I will see you in my next video. Later.